Ciao, this is my son's lawnmower. We bought it for him about 13 months ago, so it's fairly new, and he's used it about half a dozen times. He put it away, then he goes to start it this year, and you get a horrible problem which lots of people encounter. I'll show you. You start it, and this is what happens. So it goes to start, it gives you a false sense of security, and then it dies. And if I try again, nothing happens. So it's not until 3 minutes that it will start working again. So I'm not a lawnmower expert, or indeed I'm not an engine expert, but I like to read, I like to document myself. I'm very curious on how things work. So I've been reading as to what the problem could be, and I've already done some diagnosis, but I have produced a little list called the Lawnmower Start Then Dies 6 step-by-step diagnosis and fix list, and I'll show that with you. I'll share that with you, and then I will put a copy of this in the notes, the description of this video, so if you want to print it and have a look at yourself, by all means. It's the beginning of the season, and it's really annoying. When you need it most, of course, it doesn't work. So let's run through the list, and I'll briefly tell you what I've done to establish what is wrong, and then we can take it from there. The first thing to do is to check the fuel, and one of the most common faults is the quality of the fuel, especially if it's fuel that you left in there from last year. It does deteriorate, but also it can accumulate water. So the first thing to do is to ensure that your fuel is in good condition, and empty the little tank just by removing this cap here. Then you empty this by turning it upside down, collect the fuel and dispose of it properly, and then refill with new fresh fuel. Fuel goes off as soon as 6 weeks old, by the way, so that is rule number 1. Checkpoint number 2 is the air filter, and in my lawnmower is located here on the side next to the fuel tank. There are a couple of clips which I remove here, this little cover, and then you can see that there is a filter here, and there is also a filter here. I have removed those, and I have cleaned them and dried them, but still doesn't work. So I'll move on to checkpoint number 3. So having looked and cleaned the air filter, we can now take a look at the fuel cap. And I didn't actually realize until I read about it, but it's one of the most common faults. And people will take the lawnmower to be repaired when actually all there is a little bit of debris in the cap. And because this has got a little vent that allows air to get in so that the fuel can be drawn, otherwise if it's sealed, no fuel will go anywhere. And sometimes this can be blocked. I'll show you in this camera. So it's very clever, and if I just blow, you can hear that air will go through. So make sure that this is clean. You can take it actually off and give it a good clean. There is a little sponge here, and then that is a very, very common problem. But in my case, I have cleaned it, and it works perfectly okay, so I'm quite comfortable that it can go back on. It's not the problem in my case. The 4th point is not relevant to this lawnmower, as it is a fairly simple design, but if you've got a lawnmower which has got a choke, make sure that it's not closed for too long, and as soon as you start the lawnmower, then you open it. Otherwise you will flood the engine with fuel, so just play with the choke if you have to. The next problem could be the spark plug, and that is located here, in my case, at the front of the lawnmower, behind this little bracket which supports it. So this comes off. I'm not going to take it off because I don't need to replace mine, but you will find that by taking this off, and then you have a little tubular key that goes inside, you remove the spark plug and then inspect it. And if it's really dirty and grubby or very, very oily, I do mean quite dirty, then the likelihood is that that is your problem and it needs to be replaced. The spark plugs produces sparks, and that lights the fuel that then gets the engine moving. So have a look, and then if that needs replacing, it's good practice to replace it at the very least once every other year, if not once every year, or when it's serviced. The next point, and I can see it's not going to be the case in my lawnmower as it is actually free, is the ignition coil cut-off switch, which is here. And there is this little lever which effectively allows me to turn the engine on, and when I release it, it'll touch the back of this little plate and I'll switch the engine off. But I can see that by releasing it, and actually there is no contact, so this is free, so it's perfectly okay. But that's something to bear in mind, because depending on the design of your lawnmower, it is possible that it's touching, but if that was the case though, it would not start at all. In my case it does start and then it goes off. Which now leads me to the final checkpoint, which is also likely to be the problem with this lawnmower, is a dirty carburetor or a blocked carburetor. A carburetor which actually sits behind the filter here. It's a very clever piece of kit, and what it does, its job is to mix the air and the fuel as it comes through to the right ratio, so that it can be then given to the engine and burning it appropriately. So if there is a blockage, or if it's dirty because maybe you had some old fuel or some dirt go to it, all it takes is a little nozzle to get blocked, and the lawnmower will not start or will misfire. So what I'll do next, I'll show you how to remove the air filter and get to the carburetor. I'll say that confidently, I've never done it before, so why am I videoing it? I'm videoing it because the purpose and scope of this channel is to show people that anyone without any training or any experience in these things can do it. And if I can do it, I don't see any reason why you should not be able to do it. So step by step, I'll go through it. I've done a lot of reading and research, but from what I gather, it's not difficult, he says. So let's see how we get on together. I've also watched a few YouTube clips, and I see people doing this, and they are on the floor and really hurting themselves. I don't think there's a need. So the first rule is to make sure that you're comfortable and you can work better, and you will get better result. So here's the air filter. So I'll start by opening it first, as I showed you before. Also, to ensure that I don't smell of fuel for the next 3 days, I'll put some gloves on, and I'm putting these rubber gloves so that I don't completely lose the feel of things. This is the fuel line, and as there is fuel going through and there is no way that I can close it, I'll put some pliers in there and I'll lock them so that no more fuel comes out. The air filter is secured by a couple of nuts, and they are size 10 millimeters. I got a little spanner kit here, so I'll put that here, and I will go anti-clockwise, and very simply it just comes off. It's not very difficult at all. And I'll loosen up the other side also at the same time. And once the bolt is nice and loose, you can actually use your hands, which is considerably easier. And make sure that you catch the bolt and loose it. And I keep everything in a little the lid of a little tab so that they all stay together and I don't lose them. And here's the second one. In my case it's just the little nuts, but in certain cases I've seen that there are washers, so make sure you don't lose them. And if I've done my homework correctly, this should just come off easily, and it does, no problem at all. And there is a little pipe which is connected to the back here, and that is very simple to just remove it, apply a little pressure at the back, and it comes off. And now that we've got the air filter out of the way, we've got good visibility of the carburetor, which is this part over here. So our next job is to remove this clip, which is where the fuel line comes in. And there will be a little fuel coming out, but not a lot, because it's only what is in the pipe here, as I've got my pliers in there. So I'll remove this little clip, and now I can gently pull it towards me, and it should just come off. Perfect. If I can avoid fuel losing, that's it. That's good, and I can lift this up so it doesn't leak anymore. This is a little seal, very important that you don't lose it or make it dirty. So to avoid me doing that, I will just put it with the nuts. But I will remember that the writing is at the front. Actually, there is nothing at the back, so and it can only go one way anyway. So I'll put it away. And now the carburetor is just held by this couple of metal rods, and that will then come loose. Now, because everything is made so cheap nowadays and there is plastic everywhere, my only concern is that as there is plastic holding the rods, I could break them. So I'm going to be extra careful. But this little part here just unclips, and if you look, it releases this rod. So that's job number one done. And if I paid attention during the videos I watched, this one here, if I open it up, which is the throttle, and then this should just come out very simply, and it does. So actually that was considerably simpler than I thought. And now that they are loose, I should just be able to very gently pull this out without any problems, and there it is, it's coming out. And this is the little carburetor of the lawnmower over here. I moved the lawnmower on the floor so that I can work better, and also I removed my gloves as such. I do think I need to be able to feel this better. So the next job is to remove this cover from the main body of the carburetor. There is a little nut here which holds it together. I got a new spanner here, size 14mm, again anti-clockwise, and apply a little pressure. There you go, and it just comes off fairly simply and easily. So let's take a look. Actually, yeah, it's a nut and a bolt together there, and this should just come out, and it does. There will be a little fuel in there, so don't panic. Let's have a look. There, perfect. Now, what we need to look for is some debris of dirt first, but also presence of potentially water, and there is this little floaty thing. I'm not sure what it's called, but I call it a float. And I should be able to remove this by detaching this little clip over here. So I'll just pull it away very gently. I'll leave it inside here, and if I lift it, the whole thing comes off, and I'll just put it here. And I have to be very honest, I do not see any dirt anywhere, with the exception of here. Actually, I can see that there is something gritty, so it could be the problem actually. So I'm gonna get a little brush and clean it and see what happens. Yeah, actually I can see that there is some here as well, so I wonder if that is the problem, that some of that got into the inside of the carburetor and is blocking it. I could not find a small enough and clean brush to go here, so I'm using some kitchen paper, but where the dirt is over here, I'll just remove it first. See, look, I'll show you. I'm sure that this is the problem. Some of this dirt is going into one of the little fuel injectors and is blocking it, and of course that is likely to come from dirty fuel. But I'll give this a good clean first, and then we can have a look at the nozzle. Also, don't forget that you got lungs and you can blow any debris left over. So I'm happy that actually this looks really clean, and as I mentioned before, it is a fairly new lawnmower anyway. So here, if you look inside this little tube, there is something which looks like a screw. It's got a slotted end, so I'm going to be putting my screwdriver in and remove it. There it goes, and I will go anti-clockwise, and that should just come out. There it is, and see, there are tiny little holes in here, and all it takes is, I suspect, for one of those to get blocked for the lawnmower not to work anymore properly. So I'm going to use my own little compressor to ensure that I blow through it and I free any potential dirt from any of the little holes, and I'll also blow here, and it seems to be very free. So I'll put this back in, and let's have a look here. This is the little screw that I showed you earlier, and there is a tiny little hole at the top, so I'll blow through this also. Yep, it's free, and that can go back on. And as I put the screw back, I'm not going to do it too tight, just like it was when I took it out. I think with these things, the trick is always to make sure that you don't go over the top. So what I've got left to do now is to work in reverse and put it back together. So I'll start with this rubber seal that goes in here, and next I will be placing my little floater back in place, like so. And here is my little clip, so that just feed through here. It's a little hole over here. There you go, and in it goes, and it is back as it was. And all I got left to do is to put the cover back on and secure it. The one thing I need to check is if it makes any difference about the position of these. I do not remember which way it was, so I'll have to look back at the footage before I put it together. But I will secure the nut, and then we can put it back on the lawnmower. So I've gone back and checked the footage, and I have realized that this part here, this little screw, and again I'm not sure if it makes any difference, but it needs to face the front of the lawnmower, and bearing in mind that this will go this way, so this needs to be over here, so I'll secure it. So a little lesson learned for me, and hopefully some advice for you. Take a photo before you disassemble it. And I'll go ahead and secure it once again, and I'll do it just as tight as it was when I took it off. Okay, that's done, and I can now bring the lawnmower back on my workbench, and we can put it back together. And I'll work in reverse now, so ensure that this little rubber, which is like a gasket, is properly in place, and my little carburetor goes back. So this is the fuel line which faces the back, and he has done a little nut I was talking to you about. So there he goes. My neighbor is cutting the grass himself, so I'm trying to avoid talking whilst he's making lots of noises. So the next job is to reconnect this rod, which I think is the throttle. So if you remember, I'll open the throttle fully, and there is a little hole over here, and there he goes, in he goes. And the last rod to attach is this one here, so I'll place it here, and the little clip goes on top, so it locks it in place. Now you will remember this washer, so that goes back in, and it can only go one way. If you look, it's got a little circle here, so in it goes where it was before. Whilst I get to see better, I will reconnect the fuel line. So I will put this here, and then the little clip over here, reconnect it in place, which is very straightforward. If I can get done there, that goes in, and I can remove the pliers now. And all I've got left to do is to put the little casing for the filter, and if I remember well, there was a little hole here, yeah, over here, so I might just connect this first, as it is considerably simpler to do it now, and just a matter of pushing it in, and then make sure that I can reconnect it. My little washer has come off, and it should be quite, oops, no, I think I need to do it as I put this in, so oh, let's come off this side now. I'll connect this first, and I'll do this, and then I'll go in with my fingers and connect the pipe over here. It's a little bit fiddly, but a little patient and you get there done. Let's have a final check to make sure that it doesn't come off, and it's perfect. And I'm now putting the little bolts back in place so that I can secure the air filter. And literally complete reverse. I'll start by hand first, as it is considerably quicker to do this. Number 1, and here is number 2. Then I'll put my little spanner over here, and I'll gently secure it, not too tight. And my air filters can go back in, so this one goes here. This is already attached to the casing, and now it's a matter of putting it back. So there are 3 holes over here, and that clips on the top and is put together. The fuel tank is almost empty, so I will be topping it up with a little bit more fuel, and then we can test it to see if we manage to fix it. I expect that it's going to take a few goes before it starts, if it starts, because the carburetor was totally empty from any fuel. So it's got to be pumped in first and then ignited, and hopefully it will start after a few goes. So let's give it a shot. First time! Well, it seems to work at the moment, so what I'll do, I've got my grass to be cut. I left it long on purpose, so I'll do the entire field, and then hopefully if I manage to do my grass, it will be fixed. So let's have a look. And there we go, job is done. I did decide to wait a few hours because I do suffer with hay fever, and now that it's cooled down a little bit, better take this off. I look like a goldfish. And the pollen was very high. Today was the hottest day so far. I think it was 30 degrees or something similar. So if Julie turns around, you can see the beautiful job that the little lawnmower has done, and so I'm very pleased with it. As I mentioned, I haven't got it with me anymore. It's indoors. I will post the list, the little few points. I think it's 6 or 7 key points for you to follow progressively, from easier to less easier, and that will be attached in the description, as I mentioned earlier, but also I'll put it in the first comment of this video. And here with these grass cuttings, they're not going to go to waste. There is a little compost being going on in the garden. Yep. And we use it for our vegetable patch over there, and if you haven't seen it, we have got a series going on, Julie's Vegetable Patch. I think we've done about 10 different episodes, and I'll put the little playlist up here, but also at the end of this clip, of this video, and then if you're interested to see our vegetable patch, by all means have a look. Well, hopefully you found the dismantling of the carburetor and the 6 or 7 key point list useful. Let me know in the comments if you have a go and if you're successful, and hopefully you enjoy. Thank you very much, and see you later. Ciao, ciao.